I'm on a whole nother level. Girl, he only fucked you over cause you let him. Girl, I guess he didn't know any better. Girl, that man didn't show me ever. Do all I can just to show you you're special. Certain it's your love that holds me together. And you say he been killing the vibe.
How's it going, guys? Gus Daly here, back with another video, and today we're looking at the most shocking injuries 11 by Football Daily. The link for this video will be down in the description, and we'll jump right in. This will be gruesome, FYI.
Hello and welcome to Football Daily, where today we've made a team of 11 guys unlucky enough to suffer horrific injuries. Goalkeeper Petr Cech. Now instantly recognisable for his rugby scrum cap, Petr Cech didn't always need the protective headgear. The Czech stopper had won back-to-back league titles in his first 2 years at Chelsea, but he barely escaped with his life after a freak accident. In 2006, during the first minute of a match against Reading, Cech collided with midfielder Stephen Hunt and got a knee to the head, knocking him out cold. The keeper had surgery for a depressed skull fracture, and it was 10 days before he was allowed to even leave hospital. He returned to playing 3 months later and kept 8 successive clean sheets, winning the Player of the Month award. He later won the Champions League at Chelsea before joining Arsenal in 2015. Defender Bust. It's harsh to say, but nobody would know David Bust's name if it weren't for the horrific leg break he suffered whilst playing for Coventry against Manchester United all the way back in 1996. After going up for a corner in the opening minutes of the game, Bust found himself pincered between Dennis Irwin and Brian McClare, breaking both bones in his lower leg in multiple places. It was so bad that blood had to be cleaned off the grass while the defender received treatment. It even looked for a while that Bust might have to have his leg amputated due to the extent of the damage and an infection, but ultimately the leg survived and he retired 7 months later, having undergone 26 operations.
Jesus
Defender
Christ.
Patrick Batterson. 5 times a Ligue 1 champion with Saint Etienne, Bordeaux and Monaco, Batterson played with the French national team at World Cup 82, coming on as a sub against West Germany in the semi-final. 10 minutes later, Batterson was put in on goal by a Platini through ball, but was cleaned out by goalkeeper Harold Schumacher. Batterson was knocked unconscious, lost several teeth, cracked 3 ribs and damaged his vertebrae. No foul was given though, and France lost on penalties. However, the defender did recover, and at the next World Cup, France managed 3rd place before winning their first ever international tournament at Euro 84. Defender Alf Inge Haaland. Coming in near the top of Roy Keane's long list of enemies, Norwegian Haaland began a feud with the Irishman back in 1997. Keane tried to foul the defender, but overstretched and injured his ACL. As Keane writhed in pain, Haaland berated him, claiming he was faking an injury to avoid a booking. The United skipper then spent almost a year in treatment. 4 years later, Haaland was playing for Man City against United when the ball broke to him. Spotting his chance, Keane came in with studs to Haaland's thigh, flipping the centre-back over and damaging his knee badly. Somehow the Scandinavian played on, whilst Keane was red-carded. By the summer, the knee had deteriorated and surgeries couldn't correct the problem. Haaland retired just 2 years later, and he and Keane maintain their rivalry in the press today. Defender Luke Shaw. Southampton export Luke Shaw developed a reputation as one of the world's best young fullbacks with the Saints, leading Manchester United to pay more than €37 million for him, making Shaw the world's most expensive teenager in history. The Englishman had a solid first season at Old Trafford, though a recurrent hamstring issue limited him to just 16 league appearances. However, 2015-16 was to be his year, as the left-back showed huge attacking promise in the early weeks of the season. Unfortunately though, in the first game of the Champions League group stage, Shaw was taken out by Hector Moreno and suffered a horrific double leg fracture. He had to be given oxygen for the pain and sat out 7 months before returning to training. Midfield, Aaron Ramsey. An Arsenal player injured, it must come as a shock. But Ramsey's bleached barnet isn't the most traumatic thing ever to happen to the Welshman, as he got scythed down by Stoke City's hatchet man Ryan Shawcross back in 2010. The then 19-year-old was establishing himself in the Arsenal team when the 12-stoner Stoke defender went through his leg, snapping both tibia and fibula. No date was given for a return, but it was more than 8 months before the midfielder resumed training. And the results of the break are still being felt, as Ramsey has since suffered a string of bone and muscle problems thanks to the destabilising effects of the injury. Midfield Evald Linen. You may not have heard of German midfielder Ewald Lehnen, but once you see his injury, you'll never forget it. The current FC St. Pauli manager turned out for Arminia Bielefeld and Borussia Mönchengladbach in the 70s and 80s, and whilst at Bielefeld he came off worst in a collision with Norbert Siegmann of Werder Bremen. Siegmann's stunts cut Lehnen's thigh open, revealing 25 centimetres of bone and muscle inside. With the wound still gaping, Lehnen ran over to the Bremen coach to berate him for his side's rough play, and he soon reinforced his hard-bastard credentials even further, as 23 stitches and 2 weeks later he was back out on the training ground. Midfielder Kieran Dyer. Always injury prone, there are plenty of incidents which could have landed Kieran Dyer on our list, but the worst was suffered against Bristol Rovers whilst Dyer was at West Ham back in 2007. A €12 million summer signing from Newcastle, Dyer was playing his second game for the Hammers when he had his leg broken in 2 places by 20-year-old defender Joe Jacobson. It kept Dyer out of action for the rest of the season, and it was a full 17 months before he played another competitive game. Unsurprisingly, the Englishman was moved on, spending time at Ipswich, QPR and Middlesbrough, where in 2013 he scored a league goal for the first time since 2007 before that terrible injury. Forward, Eduardo. After a filthy 93 goals in 149 appearances for Dinamo Zagreb, the Croatian Eduardo looks set to fill the Thierry Henry-shaped hole at Arsenal in 2007 as the Frenchman departed for Barcelona. The Gunners were top of the league in early February, but disaster struck when Eduardo's ankle was dislocated and his fibula broken against Birmingham City. The forward was rushed to hospital where Gilberto Silva had to act as a translator between his teammate and the doctors. The incident was so shocking that Sky did not even show replays of the tackle, whilst the normally mild-mannered Arsene Wenger called for a lifetime ban for Martin Taylor, the Birmingham player responsible. Eduardo never fully recovered in London, but has since revived his career with Shakhtar Donetsk, scoring a goal every 3 games. Forward, Djibril Cissé. A victim of the turf as much as his opponent, Djibril Cissé snapped his leg whilst playing against Blackburn with Liverpool way back in 2004. His boot got caught in a divot, causing a horrific break, requiring multiple pins. In fact, only the swift actions of the medical team prevented the Frenchman from losing the leg. Despite a prognosis of more than a year on the sideline, Cissé returned within 7 months, but 2 years later he broke the other leg in a World Cup warm-up friendly between France and China. This time he was back in 6 months and went on to play in Italy, England again and Greece before retiring in 2016. He has since inexplicably DJ'd for Mariah Carey. Forward, Henrik Larsson. After a 38-goal season with Celtic in 98-99, it looked like Larsson might have his best days behind him when he fractured his leg during the UEFA Cup fixture against Lyon. The Swede feared for his career, but ultimately it was boys manager John Barnes who was the greater casualty, losing his job to Kenny Dalglish as Celtic finished 21 points behind rivals Rangers. Remarkably, Larsson returned to the height of his powers though, enjoying his best season in 2000 with 53 goals in just 50 games. He went on to net more than 240 goals in 300 matches for the Hoops, winning 4 SPL titles. He finally left in 2004, joining Barcelona, where he won the league twice and the Champions League, adding another domestic championship at Manchester United in 2007. So that was our 11 of the most...
Wow, jeez. Some of them were pretty bad, like the gash down the side of the leg with the 23 stitches, that would have came, but then again, all of them were leg, most of them were leg brace other than that one, which they're nasty to see, but it's sport, it's contact sport, they happen, sometimes not intentionally, sometimes intentionally, in a Roy Keane situation. But anyway, link to this video will be top line in the description. Smash the like button, subscribe, turn notification bell on, and until next time, see ya.
Warriors around, don't get caught in the mosh pit. Fuel to the fire, ain't nobody can stop it. Trouble in my city, but you know I'm across it. Got a 40 on my hip and I'm liable to spark it. Throw down these hits, my click is indivisible. I aim, you duck, I squeeze, now you invisible. I'm not afraid of getting physical. All these different chemicals are fogging up my visuals.